Hi everyone, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you so much for joining this Altenew video hop for a chance to win prizes. I am Nikki of Nikki Hearts Cards, and today I'm going to be looking at this marvelous monthly. It's called Flourishing Garden. It is a huge floral stamp set, so big you can cut it into pieces, you can do all kinds of things with it. It does have coordinating dies and coordinating stencils. And I am getting over being sick, so if my voice sounds a little different than normal, it's just a little bit congested. But what I wanted to show you on my Altenew mat right here is that this stamp is bigger than an A2 size card. So I'm trying to show you some different ways you could possibly line it up. I love using this grid mat so that I can see where my items are going to go. I am not going to decide before stenciling it. I'm just going to stencil the entire flower, and then I'm going to decide if I'm cutting this apart or not. Now these do come with layering guides, but I just wanted to look at the stencils briefly. They are labeled up at the top, layer 1, 2, 3, 4. I think there's 6 in this package. But I always like to kind of look and just see what's going on. I like to see where it matches and that I can definitely see the outlines of the flowers. You can also just do this, like I said, with a stenciling guide, but it just helps me to do this. So in this video today, what we're going to do is we're going to stencil. We're going to talk about some ink blending and ways to make nice, beautiful images with that. Then we're also going to talk about creating some bold cards. So the card background for this is going to be a bright red crimson color, which is not a normal color that I make in cards, but I've been kind of on a mission to use all different color card backgrounds. And so this is going to be my red card background, and I'm going to show you how I coordinate all these colors and how I use some Copic markers to make the edge of the die cut really blend with my cardstock. I used my tool from Altenew to really rub on the back of the stamp. This is the first time that I've stamped with this, and it's really large. I'm also going to use a powder tool, and I just went on and cut my piece of paper to the same size as the stamp wheel, and that's just to make sure that I have an easy time stamping this. When it's time to stencil, I'll go ahead and cut it out, but I'm going to use some Altenew Obsidian, and I'm going to use some clear heat embossing over this. Now, just in case you haven't seen an Altenew stamp wheel, it has this plate that flips around, and you can stamp on one side and then you flip it over and put it in just perfectly, and it helps you repeat stamp in the same place. It's been a really great tool. I love its grip mat, and it's really good for something this big because this is hard to fit in a smaller stamping item. So just if you want to learn more about the stamp wheel, make sure you check some of my other videos on that. I'll pop them up right at the top. Now, after heat embossing with clear over that black, I am going to use the die to cut this out and go ahead. It's just easier to stencil with it cut out because I can use my grip mat. So I'm going to cut this out with my die cutting machine, and then let's get stenciling. And the order that you stencil these in really is not a huge deal. It just helps for me to pick my color scheme so that I usually start with the lightest color as the first layer. It just kind of helps me keep things in order so that it kind of makes sense. So these are going to be the biggest parts of the stencil. So I'm going to keep this to my lightest color. This does have multiple flowers in it, and if you want to make it as easy as possible, you can make all your flowers the same color. I wanted to do red, orange, and yellow because I'm going to have that bright red background, and so I didn't want everything on the card to be red. I just thought a little bit of difference would be nice. Now you can mask with anything you want to. I tend to tear up Post-it notes because I have these doubles, like the ones that are the full sticky back, and I have regular Post-it notes, but the full sticky back is kind of like just a large piece of tape. So I'm going to start with the first red color, and I am going in and not doing these super light because I want this to show up on the super dark red background that I have. So I'm going to start with Heartbeat, and then when I do a darker level, I'm going to go with Vineyard Berry. I'm using the blending brush that's kind of short. I love this blending brush. I'll make sure I link it for you. It is so good at just laying down a decent amount of color. I really like it's an Altenew brush. But I'm just going to lay down the red color and just get it pretty even. I tend to, when I am color blending, go a little bit darker towards the middle and the edges and leave a highlight. When I'm just laying down color like this, I do usually go back and add a little bit of depth. I'm not sure that you can tell too much on the final image, but in my mind, I think, oh, well, that probably makes it look really cool. So I'm going to do all the colors that are on this stencil, which means I need to rearrange my masking now. So we'll do our small flowers next. So for the small flowers, I used Warm Sunshine, and I got out two colors, and I started to try buttercream. I thought it was a little bit light, but with these brushes, I can go in and add quite a bit, so I actually kept it to buttercream. And so for each set of flowers, I picked two colors, and the reason is with these stencils, you're going to end up with two sections for the flowers, and you could go multicolors and add to the edges, all kinds of things, but with such a large stencil, and with Altenew's ability to make everything look so detailed, really just a little is all you have to do. So I just did that buttercream right there, and then when I do my darker layer, I'll do it in Warm Sunshine. So now we're going to go to these bigger flowers in the upper left corner, and those I'm going to do in two colors. The bottom layer I'm actually going to do in two colors because I started with Sunkissed, and it was very light, and I wanted to bring out a little bit more orange even in the bottom layer. So I added some orange cream to the edges, and I'm going to zoom in so you can see this and see what a difference this makes. Now you'll notice I have changed what I'm blending with too, and that's just because I do have a shortage of blending brushes. So my orange color is actually the ink blending tool. It's a small tool, but it doesn't lay down as dark of color, so I can get this variation a little bit better. But if I really wanted these to be dark orange, it would be nice to use one of those mini blending tools that I was using before just to lay down a lot of color. So with Altenew inks, it does take them a little time to dry, so you don't really see their final color till the end. So I noticed these flowers had gotten a little lighter than what I wanted. So I went back with that mini ink blending, and I added a little bit more detail to the yellow, and then we have that little extra detail to the orange up there. Now I'm going to finish the bases of these flowers, and then I'm going to show you how I add the details on the next layer, or the next, I guess you say, detail stencil. And I'll quickly mention what colors I use for the leaves. Of course, all of this will be in the description as well. Okay, for our second detail layer, I'm going to use a detailed blending brush. So this is a smaller brush. I'm going to use the next level of orange in this same grouping. It is called Autumn Blaze, and I'm going to do all of these details, but I'm going to concentrate, like I did on the rest, in the middle and at the ends of the flowers, adding just a little bit more ink. It is a little bit slower using a detail brush, but it gets a lot of ink down, and it gives you a lot of control over where you're going to put that ink. For the second layer of the red, I went in with Vineyard Berry, which is that darker color. I didn't do as much concentrating on creating that drama because I realized that this flower still is not quite as dark as the background paper. So I'm going to go ahead and add some details with some Copic markers just to make this flower stand out just a little bit more. And so I'm not being as careful with my ink blending, but I am using another detail tool to get a lot of color down, and, somewhat concentrating it towards the middle and the ends of the flowers. And here's how it's looking. It looks beautiful. The last thing to do on the stenciled area is to do the green, and I used a little bit larger detail brush. Altenew has several sizes of these, and I'm going to color the leaves in with Frayed Leaf, and then I'm going to highlight like I did with the flowers in Forest Glades. And here's the final version. Doesn't that look gorgeous? Wow. Okay, so I wanted to make some details with this R39, but I also want to show you what happens when, if you've ever had a Copic marker do this, you'll see, but all of a sudden it makes just a big blob of ink. What do you do if that happens? Well, here is my solution. I decided that I would just make it like it was part of the highlights and continue going around. I did kind of rub my marker on a post-it note just to make sure it wasn't going to leak again like that, because I was really worried that would happen, but I knew I needed to add this color. And this is the color that's more like the background anyway, so I was going to add this. I just wasn't going to add quite so much in such an area. So I went around and added it to the rest of the flower, and here's how it ends up looking. I'm going to split the screen so you can see the original and then the added with the marker. Looks amazing, doesn't it? Next, I'm going to go around this white outline with that same color so that I match it to the back of the cardstock, and this just makes my floral arrangement blend into the background. And look at how nice this looks. I'm going to zoom in so you can see the seamlessness. See how I've done that marker around the edges? So amazing. I already stamped my sentiment, but I wanted to show you a quick trick. This card does not have a whole lot of gold on it, and I didn't want to do too much splatter, so I decided that I would put gold around the edge of my sentiment. And this is an easy way to do it with the matching embossing powder. It's just to roll your edge of your tag here around your Versamark or whatever embossing you have, an embossing ink, and just get a little bit on the edge. I go all the way around, and then we're going to add some embossing powder. Look how it turns out. I love that little gold frame. It just makes it stand out. Okay, let me hold it up. I did put a little metallic gold thread behind this sentiment just to add a little bit more detail, but I love how bold this turned out, and it's just got so much detail. I'll show you the final pictures. Make sure that you hop along with us. There is going to be a lot of prizes, and you need to hop along, like, comment, and subscribe to all the channels. The next video is the amazing Jennifer McGuire, so make sure you check that out in my description. If you want more of my videos, check this one out.